Knight's grandmother was a speech teacher, and his mom was a theater major at Montevallo Women's College, who was taught by Dr. Trumbauer. Yes, that Trumbauer. He literally grew up with theater being all around him. He grew up in Inslee and started doing plays at his church. He went to Old Minor, and his first grade teacher was the mom of the late Sam Chalker. He played the captain in Treasure Island and Professor Higgins. Higgins received the second worst review, which stated, quote, Jesse was playing Jesse, which was far too stuffy, unquote. He then went to Inslee High. As an eighth grader, he saw our town for the first time. Halfway through the final act, he told himself, quote, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life, unquote. His first role as a freshman was a waiter, whose only line was, bowl of chili, which he repeated 5 times. But he made the role memorable by falling over tables and dropping trays of dishes on every entrance. This was also when he built his first set for the Music Man. He then went to Howard College, which would soon become Sanford, on a speech and drama scholarship. His first role as a freshman, the stage manager in our town. This, of course, made some seniors mad. It was here he shared leading roles with Randy Marsh in Inherit the Wind. He played Mr. Martin in The Bald Soprano, and Mrs. Martin was played by a classmate who went by the name of Mary Lynn. He married her a year later. Randy Marsh got him involved in Actors Theater and almost killed him while doing a tour of 1,000 Clowns, twice. Randy later used Actors Theater to create what we now know as the Festival Theater. From October 1970 to September 1973, he played soldier in the U.S. Army as a small missile repairman. And strangely enough, he still found time to do some theater. He was stationed in Germany, and they had a lovely little theater in the Military Community Center, which was a miniature of the White House. He got to play Snoopy in You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, and Jeffrey, the middle son, in A Lion in Winter. His important offstage production here was the birth of his son, Sean. He then came back to the States and graduated from the University of New Orleans. And he thought he was pretty hot stuff. He found out he wasn't, as among his classmates was the future dean of 2 different fine arts colleges, the costumer of Guess Who's Talking and the sequels, and the writer-producer of Roseanne, The Cosby Show, and Home Improvements. Due to a crowded market of actor wannabes, he developed his design skills. He moved back to Birmingham and got a job with Town and Gown Theater. He worked on over 90 productions of various kinds in a 5-year period and was never at home. I met him at the Alabama School of Fine Arts. I was a fresh-faced 17-year-old child, and he and his coworker, Thomas Cavanaugh, became my other dad. He treated me with a level of respect I have never received from a teacher. He expected a lot of me each and every day, but he also reminded me that I was capable of doing what he asked of me. He's the reason I graduated from high school. He is the reason I love theater, and he is the reason I respect everyone. And most of all, he's the reason I'm here today, and I'm honored to say he is my friend. Please welcome Jesse Bates.
Thank you, Clay. And after that intro, what I'd like to say is that was wonderful and good night.
Our time here is done.
Always leave them wanting more.
Thank you so much for giving me time tonight. This whole process has been a joy with everybody, but even more so getting a chance to talk to you tonight. I told Mike at work today that I was going to be interviewing you, and he immediately lit up and said, "This will be the best one yet."
I watched Christie's. It's really good. Really good subject matter there.
There you go. Your first role, the waiter, how did that role come about?
I had done some theater at church. The lady who was my theater teacher at Inslee High School was Florence Pass. And Florence had whom we called Aunt Flossie behind her back. But anyway, Florence had a reputation, a national reputation as a theater teacher within the Thespian Society in the country. Anyway, she had seen me do some stuff at the church, and I got there, and she had this pimply-faced 14-year-old that she had to do something with, and I think the show was Mrs. McThing, but anyway, she had to do something with me, so she gave me the role as the waiter. Wasn't expecting any more than that. Was just glad to get on stage, and she let me loose. You know, all the antics were all my own creation, so it was fun. It was fun.
The Music Man was your first set build. What was that like?
That was my first lesson in how to build a $250,000 set on $50. It went okay. You know, the performance was really good. So the set was no. But it was hard. You know, you learn to make do, and it was an early skill that I had to develop, and it has kept me in good stead and in work ever since then, because I never worked for anybody who had $250,000 to spend on a set. So,
and set building is just like everything in theater. You can always learn more.
You always learn more. Yep.
Of all the sets you've built, do you have a favorite and a least favorite?
I had to think about this one. I had some real fun, and it depends on where you go and what you're doing and the show you're doing. And of course, you can't compare musicals to just straight plays. And you know, I've done some stuff where there was almost nothing on stage, and yet it was just the right statement. So anyway, sort of among the musicals, and something that I was really proud of was the set that I did for 1776 while I was at Town and Gown, and the designer there. It was a takeoff on the original set, but it was reduced in size and reduced in budget, and it stood there and made a statement, and worked with all of the actors on stage, include Jack Mann and a bunch of other great folks there. So that one I really liked. Grass Harp at the School of Fine Arts.
It's funny you should mention that, because I was just going to say I got to be on one of your sets that was like, it was magical. That was it.
It was, you know, I said, say, can we, if you remember, there were just these curtain walls in between. It was just one great big open space, and we curtained off. A curtain was not even plywood, it was plaster drywall walls. And I asked, well, you know, we've got all these people and we've got this orchestra. Can we open up into the classroom that's in behind the theater? And they went, yeah, sure, as long as you fix it back. And I made deals and promised to fix things after we did it. And we cut holes in the wall to make it look like there were trees, and we built a tree, and there was the playhouse out in the tree. It had running water, which we really had to turn off eventually because it sounded more like a horse pissing than it did. It was the most, but it had, it was just a delightful, wonderful, warm feeling. We couldn't seat more than 40 folks in that theater at any one time, but it was magic, and
it was magic. And the thing too about it was it seemed to bring out another quality of the actors as well. There were a lot of actors in that show that I thought went above and beyond their usual performances, which was good with, but they really excelled in that show. Marty Loper being one of them that I remember.
Oh yeah,
it was wonderful in that.
Yes.
And it was just a great time to be on that set.
And friends were made. I was new at the job, sort of, kind of. We were still I was trying to get my feet under me, having done 5 years at Town and Gown previously, and walking in with a lot of I got a lot of experience at Town and Gown in 5 years, which was right out of grad school. But there was other baggage that I brought, and all of that fell away. The bad stuff fell away. And it was the people that you could be with and the openness and the sharing and, oh, that's a great idea. Can I take this idea and do something different with it and go in another direction? And it was good. It was good. A lot of,
You graduated from the University of New Orleans. What do you remember about that time?
I remember it was hot and I worked a lot. I didn't get to tell you my worst set. The worst set I ever did, I think, was Tom Jones. It was at Festival Theater, and it was
Yep.
a couple of doorways. It was very practical, and it just sat there like a glob. I don't know. It just didn't do anything. It was anyway. Good actors, good. The performance of the folks in it was fine, but the set designer, they should have fired that son of a gun. So anyway, okay. Being in New Orleans, it was hot. It was muggy. I had a 7-week-old child when we got there. It turned out to be, I thought I knew what theater was all about. I had a degree in theater from college, and I had done theater in other parts of the world. And I had to take everything that I had learned up to that point, all of which was very good, and sort of set it aside. And it's like, I'll come back to this, but there's a whole big world out there of a different approach to theater and how theater is done and what it means and how it got there, that I had no idea about. And so it was intellectually and spiritually and creatively, it was very exciting and very challenging. I spent a lot of midnights doing costume renderings, and that kind of thing, and building sets and playing in one acts. And so it was very good, but it really did say, oh, this is a really, really big world out there. The third theater world is really big, and you don't know it. So
Tell us about how you got into teaching. What attracted you to being a teacher?
the first answer is always money. I got into theater, into teaching for the money. But you do get a paycheck every single month, so it does have its upside. I've been at Town and Gown for 5 years. I tried freelancing for a year. Discovered there's some very talented other designers in town, and so I had done a show with this law student while there was a year of designer turnover, and I wound up spending one semester at UAB, and then I was spend a semester at Samford. Along the way, while I was at Samford, I had helped Edward to remount his one-man show of Drummond, of Clarence Darrow. We decided to remount it again there at Festival Theater. He was invited to do that. Walked in on a tech day, and there was my old classmate, Randy Marsh, saying, Jesse G, we've got an opening at the school. The designer is going off to work on his master's degree. Are you interested? And I went, and I come from a family of teachers, so I like teaching. I thought, well, I'll try it out for a couple of years, and then I can go on, blah, 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 and do something else somewhere else. So I went down, went to the job interview with the executive director, Mr. Nelson. He told me later that I was his second choice, but he would take me. And I went,
nice.
Okay, fine. Right.
That gives me lots of confidence coming in.
Job. Yes. And it was a case of, okay, I'm going to go in there and I'll do my best, but then I'm going to go on to something and go do some real theater. And I did that for 30 plus years, because because, because, and I think it's sort of an ongoing theme, you'll hear some of the best theater I have ever seen was done there at School of Fine Arts. It was done in front of an audience of 20 folks, sometimes on a good night, but some of that stuff was brilliant. And it was a case of, do you want to go out and get the big name if you can and compete out there in the business world and the designer world and do all the things that you need to do, or do you want to do theater? And I chose to do theater, and I just got the right folks to do it with. So that's how I got into it. I didn't actually get a teaching certificate until I'd been teaching for about 10 years.
Well, that's the way it ought to be, period, I think, because we get in and then we learn how to teach and go, okay, now I can go get a certificate.
Right.
Because it is a learning process. Because ultimately it was what I wanted to do too, because of you and Thomas. When I left school, I said, that's what I'm going to do. And then it took a teacher to pull me aside and say, you're male and in Alabama, you can never make a living. Do something else.
That's true.
And,
I mean, you know, you're not going to live the high life, but, you know, I do get a retirement check every month.
Exactly.
It is a good life. And I spent a lot of time with teachers at Southeastern Theater Conference, teachers of our grade level, you know, secondary school. And by and large, you know, all of the teachers were extremely talented, could have done performing of one kind or another on, you know, separate, but what they wanted to do, because it was far more fulfilling, was to be a teacher, you know. And get to be with folks who were smart enough to do it and still had the passion to want to do it and the drive to want to do it. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm here, I'm doing a role. I'm going, you know, next week I'm going up to New York and you know. I ran into so many folks when I was doing Lost Colony who were actors in New York. What they were bartenders in New York, you know, and who occasionally went to auditions. They weren't doing theater. So
I think the older I've gotten, the more I realize every job is just that. It's a job. The trick is how do you find the passion and the love of what you do each and every day? And I have discovered, for me, it's the interaction with the people around me. Until this virus hit, I would have never have said, oh, I'm a people person. But I have discovered I am a people person.
You gotta have some of them around you sometimes. Yeah. So that's how I got into teaching.
What challenges you as an actor? What kind of push do you enjoy the best when it comes to your stage work?
I want to do a role that has something to say. They sound so trite in the way. There's something to say about being a human being, you know. I almost hate the term that discusses the human condition, but that really does pretty well wrap it up, you know. And everybody has a different perspective on what the human condition is. So I played the devil in Daniel Webster. I discovered I really like playing bad guys. You know? I love playing Fagin in Oliver. That's just my, but it's like, okay, there's another side to this story, and there's some really smart people who have to do some really bad things to make life day by day. You know, life, that's the hand life has given them. They don't all have to be unhappy, but unhappiness is sort of an ongoing thing. If we all sit around and be happy, we might as well all be drug addicts sitting around smoking pot or something. But we're living in a euphoria. The thing I really liked about when we did Shadowlands together was seeing this character. I know semi-historical, semi-fictional there in the play, but whatever. Coming into this and saying, now this is what life is about. This is the philosophy of life, and this is why God makes these demands on us, and God makes these and starting out knowing all the answers, and over time say, until real life smacks him in the face. We are outside of academia now. You have a wife, and and she has a son, and she has a husband or had a husband, and now we've got major sickness, and how are you going to deal with that? And does God, do your pat answers that you gave in Act 1 working at the end of the show? And the answer is they don't. He has come to new answers, and to see that evolution of, oh, maybe this is more of what life is about. I just loved that. That's why I love doing that role.
And that was my next question, is the fact that I got to direct you in 2 shows, and one of them was probably my all-time favorite theater experience ever, was working on Shadowlands. And there were so many things for me when I look at that show that just made it. And one of them being that we were in the middle of nowhere because we didn't have a place to put the show on, because we lost
Right.
where we were going to be. And so we moved it to this church in the middle of nowhere. And I'll never forget when we got there, the first day, you looked right me in the eyes and said, we are going to have no one attend this show. And all of a sudden we get this little write-up in the newspaper, and we had to turn people away every single night after that. And seeing a full audience and hearing them sometimes not breathing because I think they were paying so much attention to what was being said in the show was an amazing experience for me. As a director, it moved me to tears. Your performance every single night as I'm sitting in the back working the lights, watching you go through that progression every single night and knowing what you had been through before was one of the best experiences I've ever had in theater.
Me too. I can just say me too. It caught me. The play caught me. I think perhaps I had already committed to the show. I'm not sure about that.
I think we had talked about it, but we didn't know when it was going to be.
And my mother died, and she had been. It wasn't it wasn't a terrible death, but it wasn't an easy one either. COPD, no reason for her to have had it. She did. It was protracted, and to be there with her, literally listening to her draw her final breath. And my mother and I were close. I'm far more like her than I am my dad. We were just more kindred spirits. And it was hard. And I don't know if you remember, we first table read, I couldn't get through the script. I had to stop and say, folks, we'll get there, but this is going to take a minute. And I simply had to stop. I'd read the script before, but all of a sudden here we were, and it was beginning to take life, and it just jumped off the page. And it was hard. And it was, in the true sense of the word, cathartic for me to get to go through that role that said, it's okay. You can be really upset about this. In fact, you should be really upset about this. And I've used that, his monologue at the end, Lewis's monologue at the end, to deal with real life situations with friends who have lost folks who are close to them. And that line about, if you want to have the love, you have to have the pain.
Yeah.
That's the deal. And you go, okay, I have had great love, and therefore I'm going to, it will be very painful. But that's it. That's the deal.
The deal.
That's the deal. So, yeah.
Yeah. I've used the line from The Friend where he looks out the window and says, you know, I hate winter, everything's dead. And your answer to him is, but it's the promise of spring that brings us back to life.
Yeah.
How it's a cycle and we have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful memory, and thank you very much for giving me that.
Well, thank you for letting me, I mean, really, like, thank you for letting me do it. It was just one of those kind of like, okay, I can never go back on stage again and I can be a happy camper because I have done the show. So, fortunately, I did get to go back on stage again. But it would have been okay.
For 2 years, you worked on the outdoor drama, The Lost Colony, as Father Martin. Tell us about that.
Okay, I actually worked for 3 years, but I did 2 years as Father Martin. By the way, my name is Martin, so my middle name. It was a truly a no-brainer. Offered the role, you're gonna play yourself. And the third year, I played the historian, who's the narrator of the play, and that's sort of its own story into itself. I'll tell you, I had not done well. I had done outdoor theater with you, but doing it every night on the Outer Banks in the heat, in the rain, and in wool clothes. The guy who designed the clothes for this production has Academy Awards and was head of the Academy for a couple of years. So
wow,
and he went for authenticity. There were costumes on that stage that cost thousands of dollars. But I was wearing 3 layers of wool. And the Father Martin comes on at the very beginning of the play, raises the cross and says, "Yay, we're here. We're all in Virginia, and God got us here." And then it comes on at the end of that same act and says, "But we're here," you know. So anyway, but second act he is far more active. He fights Indians and all that. But doing that seeing the younger actors work so hard. I mean, they're getting the sets out there, and the sets are huge, you know, and there's ships to be floated down the river, and you know, and this act you're an Indian and you're all painted up, and you've got to go into the costume room, into the paint room and get painted down every night, and then get off stage at the end of Act 1 and get showered and get into your colony costume. And you know, I had great respect, and because it was hard for me between the heat, bugs. Once I took on the role of the historian, the guy directors want to come back for another year, and what role do you want to play? And I said, I want to play the historian. And the historian for 74 years had been someone coming out in a black robe and with a large book and the kinds of, and then in this year, this is what will happen, and then they will come and blah, blah, blah. I said, but you know, David, we could make this a lot more accessible to the audience. He goes, why don't you let him come out? He's wearing a jacket, you know, khaki pants, and let him just sort of talk to the audience. And David said, yes, but we're going to make him an old fisherman from down off the wharf. And he's a local, and he's going to come in, and he's going to, in his own folksy way, tell this story, which was a complete break from the kind of approach that had been taken all those years. I got scraped over the coals by the local paper. But the historian has been in a black robe for 74 years, and Jesse Bates may be a very good actor, but how dare he come out here and do that, you know? So I broke that mold, and I loved doing that. You know, it was a lot of fun. Now back to bugs. Like these little tiny flies that come out they have very short lifespan, like 3 days or something like that, but they cover cover the whole place. They would literally, the backside of the wall that was huge, it looked like it was crawling. Well, it was, with all these bugs. And I'm supposed to go out at the end of the play, and so the colonists at the end gather together and they march off out of the fort into the, and all the time these bugs are coming up my nose and into my mouth. And I was, so then the colonists all came out and they gathered their belongings. And, but anyway, so that was, it was fun, but you know, you got your protein for the night anyway. But it really, it's a moving story. You know, it's the story of Sir Walter Raleigh's attempts to establish colonies. They don't make it, hence the name. They're lost. They came back after a couple of years to see what had happened to the colonists, and they'd all gone. There was no sign of them being murdered, but they came back to the fort, which is right there where you are performing. It's on the site of the fort that they had. So anyway, so it was, I learned a lot. Lots of parties. Them young folks can party into the wee hours of the morning. I can't. But it was fun to see.
One of your favorite teacher moments?
Okay. I thought about this. And it's hard. You know, there are all those aha moments where somebody finally gets something. And it's whether it was how to use a jigsaw or how to do a perspective drawing or seeing them take a scene and go, oh yeah, that's what it's about. My favorite thing turned out to be every year was senior projects. Every year, it was like getting this present at the end of the year to finish it off. You guys were out there struggling. Well, I've got it. I need time for rehearsal. And well, you had 2 hours and 10 minutes last night. I get to have an hour and 40 minutes tonight. And yeah, but that competition of I want this to be the best one act that anyone has ever seen on this stage. And if I'm going, man, you don't know. There've been a lot of really great performances and senior shows, but that happened every single year. I saw students who had been kind of there at the school and had done okay and had held their own, and they would come out and do their one-person show, and it was like, oh my gosh, how wonderful, how beautiful. I didn't know they could do that. They danced, they sang, they, you know, I even had a student one time, 2 students had worked together on a project. I think it was called the Greenhouse. And it's about the terrible time in Chile under the dictator. The Greenhouse was where prisoners were taken to be tortured and murdered. And the 2 of them played about, I don't know, 4 or 5 different characters within the play. And at the end of it, you thought, it was like, I have got to get up and get out of this. This is simply overwhelming. Hurt over how could people be so callous? How could they treat each? How could we legalize this kind of thing? One of the 2 ladies who was in it came to me later and said, Jesse, did you think that we cheated because, you know, did you feel like I didn't do enough? Because our play only lasted like, I've forgotten what it was, you know, whatever the limit was, 30 minutes. And I went, honey, if it had been any longer, I would have died in there. You know, it was just that. How can people who really don't have that much life experience yet bring such talent, such perception, and such heart to performances? So my favorite teaching moments were getting to sit back and try to help wrangle senior one acts onto stage, because they were competitive. They were competitive, but they were really some of the just these wonderful moments of theater. You go, man, I wish more people could see this, because it's just great. So that's probably my sitting back and watching my kids do what they do. So.
That's a good one. On your resume, you list, quote, a valid driver's license as skills. Have you ever had a non-valid driver's license?
I won't go into much detail, but I will tell you I almost did. A policeman and I had disagreements about where I could park my truck so that I could run down into the Cabaret Theater at Red Mountain and get the lights back on. I will tell you that having a valid driver's license got me out of a lot of work while I was in the Army in basic training, because I don't drink and I wasn't doing drugs, and so I had no black marks. They would let me drive the first aid truck. So when everybody else was out marching at 8 o'clock at night in the swamps of Louisiana, I'm driving the truck. He's along in behind. My goodness, they've dropped a lot of equipment along the way. I should stop and pick that up. Nope, I'm just going to keep on driving my truck.
Tell us about an unexpected stage experience, something that surprised you or caught you off guard.
Oh, okay. The one I chose was, this is the biggest surprise I had. I was doing a performance of Quartet at Festival Theater. One of the actresses in the show had this is the advantage of working with old people, that her sugar dropped. And she knew it, but we're in the middle of the show and she can't do anything about it without just leaving stage. We're getting to the end of the final act, where she has this monologue about who she is and where she came from and growing up in India, and she sits down over on the bench, and I look over to her and say, well, in my best British accent, tell me about what you did. And how did you get here? How did you get into opera? Silence. And I look at her and she just looks back, and it's like, it ain't coming. So I improvised her monologue, which my character was supposedly didn't know anything about.
Oh, no.
Or much. She said, oh, I heard a rather rum story about you the other day. I understand that you spent some time in India. How did that work out? Or, and that you came back and so I wound up doing the whole monologue. And fortunately, after that, the lights went out and we got her off stage. When she got something to drink, and she said, I can make it to the end of the show, but I don't know where I am. Oh, great. So we did the final little scene, and we took our bows and got her off. That was my biggest surprise. I also, probably later on, I also almost knocked Fanny Flagg out 6 times. I was doing a show at Town and Gown, Old Acquaintances, something that she wanted to do. And every night after the show, she wanted to do a curtain speech after the show. I was stage managing, and I called in the drop that we were using for the downstage curtain. And it was never clear whether she was going to do it or not. And so she would sit there and they would applaud, and we'd raise the curtain and they would applaud some more. And I'd drop the curtain, tell them to bring it in, tell them to take it out, tell them to bring it in. She took it out, and it was going out, and I was calling it back in, and she was walking down stage center, and I had called it to come down, and the linesman was blind. Right. In his position, he couldn't see what was going on.
Right.
Stop. Well, I had Jimmy Hatcher over in the back corner telling me, hurry up, get it in. So he said, Hatcher. So I did that literally. I did that every single. I never knew whether she was coming in, and there was this big pipe in the bottom of the drop, and it was going to kill her if it hit her. I finally turned to Hatcher and snatched off the headset. Wouldn't you let me call this show? And stop it, or I'm going to kill her. And put the headset back on. So anyway, okay, that's enough of bad experiences coming out.
Oh, mercy. Who's your favorite director that you've worked with?
I had, and you're going to think this is blowing smoke, but the one that I have enjoyed the most, the one who I think has gotten the best and who has gotten better performances from me is you.
Oh, thank you.
If I go through the list of the shows that I've done, I had in some shows I can tell you that I've been in, I gave performances that I felt pretty good about, and the folks have told me were good. I had somebody tell me the other day, I was, did Fiddler on the Roof a few years ago. They told me I'm their favorite rabbi. But sometimes it's, I truly believe that one can get to a really fine performance without being abusive of the actors on stage. The assumption should be that 99.9% of the time, the actor who's going out there is trying to do the best they can and wants to be as professional as they can. If they're not making it, you can show them how they can be better, but you don't have to berate them in between time to get there. And what I felt like you did for me, to go back to Shadowlands, was, first of all, you gave me a lot of brain to try to explore. But there was always can we adjust? Can we, can we change? Can we turn? There were things that you did to help me along the way, because I'm willing to say I'm up on stage and I can't see me. So I felt like, and what I've noticed, Clay, in the productions where I've been able to sit back and watch you direct others, there was always that, let me help you find that character. And if they were way off, you handled it, it's like, well, we don't want to go in that direction, let me bring you back, that doesn't quite work, or it doesn't work in this space, or whatever. It ain't in the picture. Let's come back in. But by and large, I think you get really great performances out of folks because you let them do great performances and create what they want to. I had a great time doing Sunshine Boys, because you let us clang the teacups or wipe the spoons or whatever. And Howard and I just had a great time playing off of each other, and you enjoyed it, and we knew that, and letting us know that you enjoyed it, that's what, so you're it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Howard and I talked about that Sunshine Boys went in a completely new direction from what I had seen it as originally. And it ended up being a beautiful little show. I loved it.
Yeah.
There's been some where you sat back as a director and go, wow. Okay, one more time, guys. But that was one where I enjoyed every single night. It was a very fun show. Tell us about your award for career excellence in theater.
I had to think about this one, going, well, obviously, they didn't give me those awards, and I got awards both locally and on the state level, and some nice stuff from Southeastern Theater Conference as well. So, it says, well, somebody thinks you did it right. Well, it wasn't because we busted the box office, or and I didn't write a play and I didn't do the most brilliant set design ever on anything. There were, there are other folks in town that were doing stuff that I admire a lot. And so what did I get it for? What did folks see? And I'll tell you what I hope they saw. I don't know. It is that I helped to make a time and a space for other people to create art. And some of that art was acting, and some of that art was sound design or lighting design or set design or whatever, or the art of running a show, because they, oh my gosh, those folks are priceless if they're good at it. Stage managers can literally ruin a company or make a company. I've seen it
Yes.
work both ways. And that, you know, just a space where it was safe to make mistakes, to try to perfect, to take criticism and use it if you can, you know, and even to make your judgment, to turn to Jesse and say, I see what you're saying, but no, that's not quite where I'm going. Let me show you. Let me, you know, I'm headed this way, and not be punished because you didn't do it the way I told you to do it. You know, because the way you did it was really better than the way I was going to plan anyway. And I guess I hope that's what people saw, that this was a good, wherever I go, whether I've done work with Red Mountain and Festival and at the school, that there is support behind you, that I got your back, you know. Do you need something? If I can, I'll help you. I'll help provide it for you. So that's my
Perfect.
take on awards.
Is there a role or roles that are on your bucket list? You have a show that you want to design a set for on your bucket list?
I thought about this one too, and you know, I am a true believer in the statement that God doesn't give you more than you can bear. Sometimes I thought I had more than I could bear, or else the lesson of the moment was, this is more than you can bear. Don't do this again. Get out of here. Don't work with these people again. This is not you. You know, and I would hear, and I would almost be envious of folks who were working at other schools, even at other high schools, you know, and they would talk about, well, I spent $20,000 on the budget for this show, and I go, no. I went, I never had $20,000 to spend. I never had $20,000 to spend while I was at Town and Gown. Certainly didn't have that at Festival Theater, you know. And the deal is, what can you do with what you got at hand?
Mm-hmm.
And don't sit around and wish for something that you aren't gonna, that you don't have and you can't have, and sit back and say, well, if I don't get this extra $500 worth of lighting equipment, or which is not much because that's one light, that I just can't work under these conditions. Truth is, you can work under pretty much under any challenging, physically challenging conditions. Emotionally challenging is something different. But you can create theater. The word is, you need two boards and a passion. You can do without all the other stuff. It helps, but it's not necessary. I think I may have some sets that I know I have done some set designs that I wish I had done better. But I don't think that I have any that, like, oh boy, could I just do the set for the show? I don't even have any roles that are hanging out there that, you know, I thought, oh, maybe once upon a time I would have wanted to play Hamlet, and the fact that I'm old enough to be Hamlet's grandfather now, much less his daddy, you know, that's not in that play. So, you know, it has been very satisfying, you know, and you get to the point you want to go, that I don't know that do you ever get enough? Would I like to get back on stage in some kind of way? Well, yes, but not like I used to do it when I was 25 or 45, you know. I'm closer to 75. And I can do some, and I older. I did a production called Slippery Slope. It's about the Nuremberg laws and Germany falling into the Nazi trap, uh, ripping away rights from people and sending people to jail and then to the death camps. Uh, there's something to be said there. You know, there's if you get a chance to play wisdom, I guess, because there's some very wise characters within in that production. Uh, that's the sort of, when those opportunities come, take them.
Mm-hmm.
But the meal is really, the smorgasbord has been very generous. So
Great answer. Great answer. If you could perform on stage with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be?
first person is Howard Green. I love working with him. I want to work with him again. I have worked with some very good people. Just, you know, they were, but Howard is one of the most generous actors I have ever worked with. He's
And
there.
he's one of the easiest actors to direct.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. He's a joy to work with. He really, really is in every way possible.
Now, see, it's possible for me to get a chance to work with Howard again. I thought about Judi Dench. I thought she might be a lot of fun to play with. And James Spader, I don't know if he's fun to work with or not, but in his movie with Jack Nicholson, I think about Werewolf in New York or something, Spader has a moment where he has a surprise when Nicholson comes after him. He walks around behind his desk and off to the other side, and you see him transition through 4 or 5 very clear, separate emotional moments in that time. He doesn't say a word.
Nice.
It is magnificent, and I like working with folks who can do that. So
very cool. What's your favorite theater memory? It could be a show you were in or a show you saw.
Oliver, when I was a teenager, I saw it in London. Nailed was part of that. Yes, I want to do that for a living. An Ideal Husband. I had this student in ASFA who played in An Ideal Husband. It was great. Okay, yes, it was you. So,
they're going to think we did this interview just to get a bunch of plugs.
Okay, yeah, that's right. And the check, your check's in the mail, right?
That's it.
Expect that. Okay. Doing Runaways, I did Runaways twice. Once Thomas directed it, and then I got to do it again later. At a very critical point when the awareness of the plight of Runaways, because it has gotten worse than it was even when we first did the show, over 30 years ago. Getting to direct that's another favorite one. I got to direct Tartuffe at ASFA. That was great. When I was in New York recently, barely missing the COVID-19 virus, I think, I got to see a play called Come From Away. It is magnificent. It was like, just when you think they can't come up with anything that's better, by golly, they do. That was the most heartwarming, beautiful, beautiful play I've seen in a long time, and I just loved it. So those are some of my faves, aside from senior projects. So.
Tell me something about yourself even your close friends wouldn't know.
I once climbed a rope ladder in a circus camp, got out on a trapeze, and dropped 25 feet into a net. I did that.
Nice.
uh, and whatever else. What else? Did I do? Well, I almost knocked out. I almost gave Fanny Flagg a concussion, but I've told you that story. So, we
What
were talking
do
about Alzheimer's earlier. Let me tell you the story about Fanny Flagg doing this play, Town and Gown. I almost gave her a concussion. Okay.
what do you enjoy more, acting, set design, or teaching, and why?
Ugh, not easy. I think you do. I think you do one in all of them. I think you do all of them in any one that you do. I think a set is supposed to be another character on stage. That's that's why Tom Jones didn't work. It wasn't. Uh, so a scenic designer is an actor. He is she is an actor on the stage in whatever that statement is. And any actor worth their salt will be teaching at the time. If they're good at it, other people are watching them, and you should be watching them. So that it if you are proficient, not great, but proficient at both the acting and the and doing the scenic design, then you can become the teacher. If you can't, then you shouldn't be trying to teach it, because you know what it is you can do, but you're supposed to be, but you have to be aware of what other people are doing. If all of the characters out on stage, and this is a complaint that go back to the Hatcher days, because it's been a while, it got to be that everybody looked like Hatcher on stage, or acted. That was one of the complaints about his directing style. I don't think that was entirely true, but if the only way is my way, then you're not teaching. The way has to be your way of finding the statement for that character in that moment, in that cast. It'll
And
always be different.
that's part of the joy of theater. It's a two-way street, and it's an interaction throughout the entire process with your set designer, with your actors, with your director, with your stage manager. All of these
Yes.
to come together, and you try and just mold this thing, but you never know how it's going to end up. But then you hand it off to the audience, who then gives back that energy, and that transference of energy
Yep.
back and forth is what makes it so amazing. That's what you can't get when you go see a film.
Right. You can, because you can, the audience can react to the film, but whoever's up there, Judi Dench, doing her scene with James Spader, doesn't know how I felt about it.
Exactly.
She can only hope.
Now that you're retired, what are you doing with all your free time?
Our biggest concern is, of course, these days it's how to get groceries from the grocery store. I'm doing a lot of granddaddy stuff. So, but in that vein, I've started giving one of my granddaughters some drawing classes. So she's interested in doing costumes and that kind of thing. So
nice.
Them drawing the bodies and how to do perspective drawings and that kind of thing. So it's been fun. But I spent a lot of time driving back and forth. I know every little place between here and North Atlanta to stop for gas and body.
Well, I'm going to end this the same way they end the show that I'm ripping off doing this from, which is in 10 questions from a French television personality. And you can answer them any way you like.
Okay, I'm prepared. Okay, hit it.
What is your favorite word?
Mary Lynn. It is.
Least favorite word?
Oh. Um, I think hate. Hate feels like what it says, and I just
Agreed.
don't like it.
Totally.
It is demeaning. It's I hate you. It's you are of no worth.
What turns you on?
Well, uh, sexy brunette. So I married one. So uh, I tell folks, uh, the most inexpensive way to get married and the divorce thing and all that stuff is marry your trophy wife the first time, which is what I did. Um, uh, I really, I like a well done. I do. I love going to see theater. Sometimes it feels like going to work. If it's not well done, then I sit there and have to critique it all the way through. Oh, that lighting cue was late, and that person missed his line, or whatever. But when it comes together, um, like Come From Away, there were no mistakes in writing and performance or whatever. It was just perfect.
What turns you off?
Um, Blatant. I'm sorry it takes so long to answer this. You can edit out some of the words. Um, I think blatant, call it disrespect, but going beyond that, when you take the moment to berate someone and to destroy them, that's only self-serving, and no one has that right. No one. You have a right to be. Every human being has a right to be a human being, and therefore you may not do that. You may not destroy someone else. So I think that kind of treatment of other people just shouldn't be allowed. We have a lot of it. I mean, it shouldn't be allowed.
True. What sound or noise do you love?
I love listening to very young children laugh. I used to watch Teletubbies. I'm sorry they took that off the air. Because at the very end, there was a little child in a sunbeam that would just laugh. And it gave me such calm to listen to that child. There's just nothing quite like it.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Silent anger.
What's your favorite curse word?
The one I use the most is damn it. Damn it, damn it, damn it, damn it. It has many times, but yeah, and there are others that I use, but that's probably the one I use the most.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
See, that's the thing about being in theater. You get to do it all. I got to be a carpenter. I got to be a lighting person. I got to be an electrician. I got to be a painter. I got to be I did them all. I would say, however, that any profession that requires me to be more than about 18 feet above the floor, I don't like. I hate heights. So, which is not good for somebody in the lighting and does lighting in theater.
Exactly. And you covered my next question, which is what profession would you not like to do? Anything
with heights.
And then the last question, If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Come on in. The stage door is down that street on the left.
Nice.
Just, I can't see heaven. Mark Twain has this beautiful story about, and it's supposedly unfinished. Captain Stormfield enters heaven. And it's like, did you spend all of your time here on earth learning to do things and finding out what was great about life to go up there and do something that you don't do well at all? I do not play the harp, don't ask me to do. And singing, I tell folks that one of life's great jokes is that people have actually paid me to sing for them. But they did. That can't one concept that's as valid as any others, because we don't have that many folks who've come back to tell us otherwise, is that it's a continuation, and that it's where you can get better at better at being what you are. And I am not just totally just this body. That's not it. That's not all of it. And hopefully I'll get a chance. There will be opportunities to do more of what you enjoy doing, and doing it better, and or getting to replay that role like so many actors do. You get to the end of the play and you go, oh, that's what that scene was about, and you figure it out. So now I've got eternity. Now I can really go back and find out what it was by C.S. Lewis, or fake.
Well, thank you for giving me your time tonight and giving me a chance to just visit with you, because I don't get enough Jesse in my life, period. It's been wonderful for me when I needed it. It's speaking back on the God thing. I think our soul is in our friends, and they're the ones that carry it for us each and every day and remind us of who we are. And you do that every time I see you and every time I talk to you. Thank you.